Hey, sixth graders, just wanted to do a quick summary from last night. Not a long video today, but just wanted to tell everybody what we covered. Again, we have a little bit to finish up next week for our first session here to end the fall time before Advent. But we started on page 31 of the workbook to finish last week's chapter. We looked at the seventh commandment, thou shalt not steal. As always, we look at what is that saying yes to when it's saying no to stealing. And it's saying yes to honoring not just what you've been given and being grateful for that, but also there's a contentment piece to it. But there's also taking care of your neighbor's things, respecting your neighbor's goods and possessions. And so we have a duty to honor our neighbor and their things and their possession and their income and all those things as well, their well-being. So we talked about the importance of money and the role that it plays. Obviously, it still pays the bills. It keeps the roof over our head. It keeps our mouths fed, all those sorts of things. So it's definitely a necessary thing and a thing that is important in many ways each day of our lives. But we talked about it in terms of God and how He's involved, and He gives to us everything that we have. He's the reason we have those jobs and those income. He's the reason we have the roof over our head, the food we have to eat, the clothes we have on our back, all those sorts of things. And so we talk about what that means for us. That means we're stewards. The word stewardship came up, and that is what God has given to us, we are entrusted to care for it and take good care for it. And so sometimes that's our neighbor and what they've been given. We care for their stuff as well. We had some really great questions tonight, talked about a lot of different topics, but we worked through thou shalt not steal, really trying to uncover that it's a lot more than just, oh yeah, fine, I won't steal. It's always bigger than that. And so we talked a lot about what that means. We also talked about how that's gotten a little bit more complicated, as all the commandments have, with intellectual property. So we talked about, hey, if I buy Netflix and give out my password to everybody, is that stealing? There was mixed comments on that. A lot of people do it, but it is stealing. It's basically paying for one thing and multiplying it or making it. I said, one account of one Netflix is one account. And if you have one Netflix and you turn it into 6 Netflix, you're paying for one, you're using 6. Your usage, your consumption is more than you're paying for. And so that is stealing. And so we talked about how, these things get kind of blurry and people act like it's completely okay. I know in my day it was downloading music illegally, the artists that made that music weren't being compensated for that. So, that was stealing in my day, and it was something we were all tempted to do. So we talked about those different things, but it comes down to, it's written on our hearts what's good and bad. And sometimes it's not obvious, but, to not steal, to be respectful of other people. And we even talked about how sometimes we don't even see the damage it's doing. And then obviously the popular mission of, hey, these corporations make a bunch of money. Who cares if you steal a little bit? Well, what if a lot of people steal a bit? Those sorts of things. So, and it's about our hearts. It's about our sin and being honest about it and dealing with it so that we can move on in a healthy way as God has intended us to. So we had really good discussion on the seventh commandment. We started to move into what will be next about telling the truth. We had great questions about, what is stealing, what is not stealing. We talked about stewardship quite a bit. I talked about how I'm, one of the possessions that I'm called to care for is everybody in that classroom, my kids, my wife, but really the entire Messiah family. My job is to steward that flock, to protect them from evil, and to take care of them. So we went through that as well. That's part of my stewardship job. And their parents. As parents, our jobs are to care for our children, and that's one of the things God's given us that I'm called to take care of. So a great question that was asked was, if someone steals from me, what should I do in response? And we talked about that, and that's really a challenging question to answer. And I said, if somebody tries to steal my wallet, if they do it with violence or something like that, I'm okay letting that go. If they try to steal my daughter, I'm going to respond quite a bit differently, right, as someone that's called to care for her and look after her. So we talked about, at school, if someone steals from you, steals your chips or whatever it is, like, obviously we're supposed to look at how can we be a witness, how can we be loving, and how can we seek justice too. I said we can ask for it back politely. We can talk to a teacher, use those resources God has given us to make things right, to make ourselves whole. God doesn't want us to be stolen from. He doesn't want us to lack in things that He's given us. But we just have to be discerning in how we approach those things. And if it's something we really care about and has a lot of value for us, we can certainly fight for those things and use the just avenues to retain what's been taken from us. But at the same time, we have to be a witness and be a light. And sometimes that can be in challenging situations. I thought of the example from Les Miserables. There's a thief that breaks into the church and steals their finest silver. And then the cops come to arrest him, and the priest is willing to say, "Oh no, you forgot this stuff," and not only let him steal the things that he'd come for, but he added to it in an incredible act of grace. So not only was the thief not arrested, but he went away with lots of goods, because in that moment it went from stealing to being given. And that was just an incredible gospel message, I think. So when someone steals from us, it is an opportunity to show God's grace. And in that moment, the person was shocked by the grace, and it worked on his heart and mind in a powerful way. And so in the same way that we certainly steal from God, we don't give him all the time that he asks of us. We don't give all our attention. We have idols are in front of him. We have doubts sometimes, all those sorts of things. Even though we steal the finest silver from God, he says, "Oh no, I give you my all. I give you my son, and I give you forgiveness." And he basically makes it so we're no longer a thief. We're now a receiver of grace and mercy and peace. And so that's what it's really all about. We're almost done with the We're almost done with the commandments, 10 commandments. We'll be wrapping that up next week before the holidays. It is our next Wednesday class next week. So if you have time now or through the holidays to just make sure the workbook has gone through, we'll end up stopping. Ideally, you'd get through chapter 8 and chapter 9 is what we'll be talking about this week to close the commandments. So before the holidays, we want to get through chapter 9. That'll get us through the 10 commandments and things like that. So any questions, as always, please ask. And I pray God's being gracious and merciful to you. And you are starting to get into the mode of thanksgiving and gratitude. As this time of year, we're able to pause and do that. And that's not only a good exercise for us and an opportunity to be around family and eat good food, but it's also an opportunity to lower our anxiety, because in the brain, in the limbic system, you cannot be grateful, you cannot be praying prayers of thanksgiving and be anxious at the same time. As Paul said in Philippians, he called us to not be anxious about anything, but instead offer up prayer of thanksgiving, and that's because he knew how God had created the brain, and when we're thankful, we're not anxious. So I pray you're having a great time, and we'll be seeing you next week before our Advent break. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.